Okay, I'll just share my screen. Okay, so good morning all, and thanks everyone for taking time and joining this session. So before we start, just like to inform everyone that we have tried to make this session a bit graphical so that it would be easier for you to understand. And also, I'm expecting that every one of you would be interactive and asking questions on sessions that we said. Also, uh, Also, just to mention that this session is somewhat specific to Click, but that doesn't actually mean that all the concepts are specific to Click. There are certain concepts which are common to all the tools. So maybe, it is a generic thing which like everyone can benefit. So before we start, just to introduce that, I'm currently tech delivery lead and handling a wholesale project. And yeah, so we'll start the session. So most probably all the things that we are going to cover in this session is most importantly the staging architecture in Click, optimized and unoptimized load in Click, understanding the data aggregations, understanding the concept of granularity, different types of data models and their benefits and limitations, also data model best practices, some of the best practices that we can use in ClickView for UI, some of the best practices at script level, and some of the optimizations that we can try at server level, and of course the document chaining. So we'll start with the staging architecture first. And I'm so basically this is a very common architecture which we must all be aware of it, but I can still see, I have seen some on some of the projects that still some of the people are not using this staging architecture. So we will go through this staging architecture and we will also see what are the benefits of it. So basically the staging architecture that you are able to see on the screen is the basic architecture that we usually use in all the projects, and there is a slight variation in this architecture in which I'll be explaining it in another slide, which would be a bit detailed architecture and you would get more details from that. But before that, I'll just walk you from this architecture. So basically we have three stages here. Stage 0 is all the data sources that we have. Stage 1 is where we do all the extractions and incremental job. That is, we create QEW, extract the data from all the data sources, store it into QED. So this stage is basically the stage 1. Then after stage 1, we have this transformation stage, which we call it as stage 2. What we do is we combine multiple stage 1 QEDs and then merge it into components. So these components are basically specific to business. So if you are working in, suppose, a finance company, then we have multiple domains there like analytics, operation, finance, HR, then credit. So we can form such component maybe department wise. So these components are nothing but the QEDs, the final QEDs that we have in ClickView. So maybe if you take about the HR domain, then we might have multiple HR tables, raw tables in database. Maybe if we have 10 data tables in database and I want to form an HR component, then I will do multiple joinings and transformations on those raw QEDs, and then form this HR components. Similarly, we will have department specific components here at this transformation stage. After transformation, we move to data model where we might have one or more data model depending upon the requirement. So we'll create data model out of these components. So if a particular application is required data from different departments like HR operations, then we will pick up specific domains from the required departments and we will form a data model. After data model, we do visualization by taking a binary load. So also we have observed that there are certain projects where we have done data modeling and visualization in one single application. So it is always preferable to keep it separate, but again it differs from project to project. So this is a very basic and self-explanatory diagram for staging architecture. Now we'll move on to a bit detailed version of it, where the concept is very similar, that we have stages here: stage 0, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. Just that as compared to previous diagram, on this stage 2, which is a transformation stage, uh, that particular stage is broken down into two different stages, which is stage 2 and stage 3. What they are doing here, basically, let's start from beginning. Again, the 0 stage is the data sources, The stage one is basically, as I said, we will perform the incremental load, we will do the extraction, we will create master tables, we will create transaction QEDs, slowly changing dimensions. And then the next process in stage one is we need to do aggregations, creation of new columns, joining, concatenations, whatever, which will ultimately form the transformation part, and we will come into stage two. So as I said that in transformation part, we will create components specific to departments or specific to modules there in a particular business. So you can see this next stage, which is a stage three, which is basically a special functions, which means that there could be a possibility that you have created. So just let's take an example of a finance company. So I'm working in a finance company. I have created several components like customer care component, where I have all the customer specific data, all the customer demographic information into one component. I have credit department, I have HR department, I have operations department, I have analytics department. So likewise, I've created multiple components in this stage two, in this transformation stage. Now, suppose all of a sudden one user from operation team comes to me and tells that I have a new requirement. So your data model will remain the same, just that I want to add few new KPIs and I have some updated logics for that KPI. So basically that KPI only is going to use the component operations, because that particular operation, it is basically a requirement from operation team. So the thing is that to create that KPI, we might have, like, the user might give you some complex logic, which is, it is group by and concatenation and all that. By after doing all this, the outcome is one QED, which could be derived out of a complex logic. So ideally, we can do this thing in the same operation QED, operation component that we have created. But what it will do is, if an operation QED is currently taking just 10 minutes of reload time, and we are adding this new logic which is taking 1 hour, then ultimately we'll have a reload time of 1 hour 10 minutes, which will affect all the particular data models which are using operation QEDs. So to avoid that, what we have to do is we have created a separate component for the special functions, which will, so if we create this special component, special list of components wherever we have logic specific to some particular business, some particular departments, then the reload time of that particular, or the complexity of that special function, will not actually affect the transformation components that we have created. So maybe there could be some data models which use operations, HR components and credit components, and there is another data model that use operations, HR plus this special function component. So all those components, although data model which are not using the special functions, might require less time to reload. However, the another data model that we have created recently will require 1 hour. So the thing is that out of all your data model, out of all your applications, this particular special component what we have created will not impact all the data models. It will just impact reload timing of one specific requirement, one specific data model. So which is why we have created this in a stage three. So after this transformation stage, we are going to create these special functions, and then the rest of the process remains the same. That is, we move to stage four, we create data model, and then we go into the visualization. So this is a basic staging architecture. So there are various benefits that we all have experienced by using this staging architecture. So we have also seen some of the projects where a team has directly started the development without following any standard approach, and we have actually seen what are the limitations that may come like we have came across after this unstructured approach that has been followed. And we have definitely tried to go back few steps and create the staging architecture in that project, and we have actually seen some of the benefits. So this staging architecture also includes concepts of naming conventions and folder structure, which Prashant has already covered in his previous sections, and definitely that also we have to keep in mind while doing this. So we will see some of the benefits of this staging. So the first benefit is reduce redundancy. So as I said that this is a very optimized approach where we are trying to create all the required things in one place. And the concept of reduce redundancy basically means, I'll just try to give you an example. So suppose I have a team of around 5 members working in this finance project, and every member is working on some or the other department. So one person is working on operation, one person is working on HR, So likewise, all the five people are working on different departments. And now there are certain KPIs out of all this development which are common for all the dashboards. So maybe I will take an example of year on year growth of sales. So that might be used in multiple dashboards. So when I'm not using a structured approach, when I'm not using the staging approach, what happens is all the developers are working in silos. They are working, completely. They are only specific to their own requirement. So one particular team member will be creating this sales YOY logic by his, uh, so he will create by his own, but the same KPI is being used in another dashboard as well. So after 2 months, the another team member comes and tells, okay, I have to create this sales YOY logic. So, because they are working differently, he will create again the same logic in his application. So there is a redundancy of this logic. Why? Because they are not aware that this logic is already used by some another team member in your same team. So by using this staging architecture, what happens is, all this common logics comes into this transformation stage in form of components. So what happens is whenever you need some logic from some particular component, you simply, so based on all the documentation and all based on what all discussions you have done, you are very much aware that this particular logic is already derived in one particular component. So you will pick it up from that component instead of deriving it in your separate application. So this is what is a reduced redundancy. So we are reducing this repetition of code in this transformation by the staging approach. Then there is consistent logic across all the dashboards. As I mentioned that we need one logic, we know that this logic is present in this particular component. So I'll pick that QED and use it in my application instead of creating separately for my requirement. Then there is a work collaboration. By work collaboration, I mean that this staging approach really require collaboration among team members so that everyone is well aware what another team member is doing and what the component that another team member is handling. So what are the different KPIs that he has derived in that component? Definitely we will have a document for that, but again, there is a good collaboration between team because everyone is aware what components the other member has created, so that if you need any KPI out of his component, you can simply, you specifically know that okay, you will get this particular KPI in this particular component. So there is a good collaboration among the team in this approach. Also, this is an optimized approach. So as I've already explained you this difference, that how this unstructured approach will impact and how will the staging approach benefit us. Then there is ease of managing and maintaining the task reloads. So in the initial example, so when we are following the unstructured approach, what all the team members are doing is they are creating their own reload schedules on QMC and as per their convenience. But here we have staging approach, so everyone is well aware that which particular stage QEW is to be reloaded after which QEW. So there is a well dependency maintained in the staging approach, and everyone is aware which particular QEW to be reloaded after which particular QEW. So if you have any change in the dependencies, then you are very much aware out of the document what you have to do. So there is a easy maintenance of this reload tasks as well. Then ease of troubleshooting issues is whenever you have an issue in your dashboard, you specifically know that instead of backtracking all the things, I will simply go into this transformation stage and I'll check for the issue instead of going all through the UI, then data modeling, then finding out where this field is coming from. Because of this staging approach, you are very much clear that this particular component will be found in this particular transformation stage. So which makes an troubleshooting the issues very, we can easily troubleshoot that, we can easily target that issue. Then there is less frequent database hits. So this is very obvious that if you are using the staging approach, whenever you will reload the application, we are not directly hitting to database. We are fetching the data from QEDs, and then the reload is happening. So we are not continuously hitting the database. So there are some scenarios where people have used some direct SQL queries in ClickView application, which is not a good practice, because whenever we are developing that particular application, we might need to reload that application multiple times. So whenever we are reloading, it is always going and making a hit to database and fetching the data instead of fetching it from QED. So it is always preferable to fetch the data from QED. So first you fetch the data from database and then store it into QED, and then we fetch it from there. So these are basic benefits of the staging approach. far anyone has any questions, or am I going fast, or should I, you know, go a bit slower?
No, it's okay, Ram.
No, no, please continue.
Okay. So moving on to the next slide. So this is basically optimized and unoptimized load. Most of the ClickView members must have, know, must be aware of it, but I'm sure that many of you must not be aware of what exactly is optimized and unoptimized load. Because so far we have seen various project, various team members, they are not actually aware what is optimized, and they are least bothered about it. Actually, what is optimized and what is unoptimized load. So basically, from the name itself, you'll come to know that optimized is something that is good, that is taking less time, that is beneficial, and unoptimized is which approach we might be using it and we are not aware of it, and it might take much time. So we are going to see here what is optimized and unoptimized load. So basically, load means loading the data from QED, specifically in our scenario in ClickView. So the simple thing is that when we load a particular data from QED, we either do the load star, or we write a load statement, and then we list down multiple columns that is there in that QED, and then we apply multiple if conditions, where conditions, multiple functions as per our convenience to derive new fields, or maybe apply some conditions on that load. So what happens is whenever we apply these conditions on that load, or whenever we use if conditions and multiple date conditions, string conditions in that particular load statement while loading a QED, that particular load is an unoptimized load. Now you will just wonder that I have to create a derived column. Then what should I do if it is an unoptimized load? I have to filter certain records. Then there is no option than writing a where condition. So this all operations that we perform on that QED while loading makes that QED to load in an unoptimized manner. On the other hand, if we are loading a QED directly by doing a load star, or by doing a load and list down all the columns, and simply without no if condition, no date conditions, no where conditions, directly if we are loading, it is an optimized load. So one question will arise in your mind, then what is the option to make an unoptimized load an optimized one? So this is what I'm trying to explain here. So basically, you can see the diagram is again the self-explanatory, that you are fetching the data from QED. First, we'll go to the second diagram here. So we are fetching the data from QED, and I'm doing a load star. So because I'm doing a load star, directly that data is getting loaded into memory, and we are using it in dashboard. So there is no operation performed, which is faster. And actually, when you will reload that application, you will see the word there as optimized and unoptimized, depending upon what the way you are reloading it. Moving on to the unoptimized load, we can see here that whenever we apply if conditions, dates, string function, what happens is the first data when we fetch from QED and we apply these functions, this data is unpacked. Why it is unpacked? Because it has to transform that data, it has to apply those functions, it has to apply that where condition. So that data is unpacked, then it is transformed, then that transformation and these functions are applied here, and then it is repacked again. Repacked in the sense, again it compresses that data as per features of QED, and then it is loaded into memory. So this particular process of unpacking and repacking take time, and that is why this load is unoptimized load. So as compared to optimized load, this unoptimized load is bit slower, and definitely you will see in optimized load the reloads are faster. You can actually see the difference in the timings. Okay, so as I said, that what is the option then if we have unoptimized load? We cannot all the time, we cannot load star from QED and then take a resident of it and apply the conditions. So there are certain things that we have to consider, which will result your QED to go into an unoptimized load. Some of the things I've listed over here. First is deriving a new field. So if you are trying to derive a new field by using a if condition, by using some conditions, you are trying to derive a new field, that is definitely some transformation performed on the field, and it is going to take time. So that will result into an unoptimized load. Then we have date functions, string functions, numeric functions applied on the columns. We have if conditions, we have where conditions while loading the data. So these are all the things which are causing QED to load in an unoptimized manner. Whereas on the other hand, optimized is basically what is happening. You can see in optimization, you are actually loading 1 lakh records per second. And also there is one concept: if you are renaming a particular field, then still it is an optimized load. So except renaming a field, if you are performing any other operations on column, it goes into an unoptimized state. So now we'll understand how we can avoid or minimize this unoptimized load in our application and move into an optimized state. So what we are going to do is, first we'll focus on the where condition that we are applying. Just I'll give you an example here. So if you are applying two where conditions, so there is a concept of where exist and where not exist in ClickView. So instead of using where condition, what we can do is we can use a where exist or where not exist. So you can replace the where commands with where exist. So but that has to be taken very carefully. So just I'll tell you this example how it works. So suppose we have around 1 lakh records in a particular database, and we are trying to apply two filters on it. The first filter is the city, and another filter is the year. So normally what I apply is I apply it in where condition at where city equals to Mumbai and year equals to 2020. So it is applying both the filters together. Now the thing of where exist is that we have to use one filter at a time in this where exist statement. We can use, but we should not use two filters at a time. We would use one filter at a time. So by due to this thing, what I'll try to do is, if I have only one filter to apply on a data, I will directly apply it by using where exist. But if you have two or many filters, then first I will try to identify out of those two, and like two or more filters, will first try to identify which filter is filtering maximum records. So out of 1 lakh records, when I'm applying city equals to Mumbai, it is filtering around 70,000 rows. That is, it is excluding 70,000 rows and taking only 30,000 rows. Why? Because 30,000 rows are specific to Mumbai. So it is taking the resulting data set is 30,000 rows. Whereas whenever I'm applying 2020 condition on 1 lakh records, it is filtering only 20,000 rows. So the resulting data set is 80,000. So it is very visible to us that when I am applying Mumbai filter, it is 30,000. And when I'm applying 2020 filter, it is 80,000. So we will first give preference to that where condition, which is filtering out many records, which is the first condition where city equals to Mumbai. Why I'm doing so is this 30,000 is a resulting data set. So another where conditions or another whatever derived fields you are going to create, you are going to create on this 30,000 set of records instead of 80,000. So definitely when you are applying derived conditions or where conditions on this 30,000 record, the process will be faster as compared to 80,000. So we will first apply where exist on Mumbai, so that we will have resulting data set at 30,000, and then we can take a resident of it and apply all the derived columns whatever we required, and apply all the basic filters or where conditions there. Not necessarily then you have to apply where exist again for this year filter. If you don't apply where exist, it is fine. Why? Because we are already filtering a lot of data in the first where exist statement, and then we are getting a limited set of data sets on which we have to work. Then we can directly use our derived columns and where conditions there. Simple syntax is there. So first what I'm doing is I'm creating a temp table and I'm creating an inline. Why? Because I have to give a filter on Mumbai. So I'm creating a city column and giving a Mumbai as a data. Then I'm loading my transaction table here, and then you can see here that I am, just a second. So in the bottom, you can, so here there is a where exist city. So what it is doing is it is checking the city that I have provided in this city column, and it is filtering it, the entire data set on this city. Instead of using a where condition which will go row by row and then filter it, this where exist will directly filter the entire chunk of data. So definitely you can, to explore this more, you can check various details available on community, and click websites where you can actually get how to use this where exist function. But this is the thing, you have to keep a basic rule in mind, that we try to reduce the data set by applying where exist, and then we can take a resident and apply other things that we have, other filters that we have. So basically, this is the concept of optimized load, and this is what the example I was trying to explain. And definitely, if you have any questions, you can ask on this.
Hi, Rohan.
Yeah,
So this loading is only optimized for while loading QVDs, right? If we
yeah,
are
correct,
using a resident load, we can use all those functions that are
correct, correct.
categorized as unoptimized.
So why it is because resident load is already the data is available in memory, and you are because it is a resident load, it is fetching the data from memory directly. But here in this previous case, we are fetching the data from QED, which is bit time consuming, but definitely it is more optimized than fetching directly the data from database.
Yeah. Hi, Rohan.
Hi.
Yeah. This optimization can be performed on stage one or means the latter, like business oriented.
See, the stage one is basically the extraction. So we are
So
extracting the data from
that is
database.
stage zero, na?
So see, as I told you, stage zero, I'm mentioning the data sources. I'm not performing anything. Stage zero
Okay.
is data sources. See, stage zero is data sources. Stage one is where I'm extracting the data from data sources and storing it into QED. So our extracted QEDs and extraction and incremental load comes in stage one.
Mm-hmm.
So because I'm extracting the data from database, what optimization we can use is we can use incremental load to reduce the
Okay.
reload time. This is what we can do at stage one. But later after stage one, we have to play completely with QEDs. We are not going to hit to database. So whenever we'll move to stage two, we will fetch the QEDs for transformation. So this basically is for optimized load is to be taken in consideration when we are loading the data from QEDs.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fine. Means that is the specific to business, like a specific module oriented, na? It's not like we should perform on the while stage one means while converting to the QVD.
So,
Hello.
so I'm not clear about your question.
So
Uh, let me help here. So
Uh,
I think what he's asking is, while we are writing into QVD, these rules should not apply. Like if we are applying incremental load, so
Yeah,
instead, if we use the approach of loading the existing QVD and then applying where exist or where not exist on the its key field to add additional data, which one would be the faster approach? The traditional where we give the date range. Okay, I want to fetch only the previous 5 days data for the incremental.
yeah, there
If
we cannot use
the
that.
where exist.
Yeah, there we cannot use that.
okay, fine. And can you help me out, means to how we can apply incremental load with the multiple date, like the database have means multiple date, one is like create date and update date.
Okay, so it is basically the scenarios of incremental load, which is a vast topic, and definitely we will cover it, but not currently in this session because that is not a small topic which I can explain you right now. Because yes, you're talking about the incremental load that we do, the insert incremental load, the update and the delete incremental load, which are basically handled on the combination of primary key as well as the date columns.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, I'll not cover this now because it is going to take time to explain. But definitely, you can reach me out later, and I can explain you all the incremental stages and how we have to do this incremental load. Or maybe we can cover the same incremental load session in some another further upcoming sessions.
Sure,
So,
sure.
so I'm not considering incremental load as a part of this session. So I can explain you offline as well, or we can cover this session in the next slide, the next session we have.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
So next comes is the data aggregations. So basically aggregations, first we need to understand what is aggregations is something, from the name itself you should come to know that we are grouping something, we are summarizing something. So this is what is aggregation. So expressing the data in summarized form is nothing but the aggregation. So we use aggregation in various other tools as well, not only ClickView. We do it in SQL. We do need, we have to do these aggregations in Tableau and various other tools. So this is a very common concept, that what exactly the aggregations is, and understanding the granularity of data for this aggregation. So aggregation is nothing but bringing together all the data and summarizing it, And to do that particular thing, we have to use a group by clause, which we all know. But I'm based on whatever things we have seen, that there are various still various members who are still not much comfortable for using this group by. They are not pretty sure, like, we are using group by and then I have to use some columns in group by. What they do is simply take a load, they add multiple columns, they apply group by, and then what they do is they list down all the columns they have loaded in the group by statement. That's it. Why? Because they know that it will throw error. But actually no one is many of us are not pretty clear about which columns you have to take there to actually perform the group by operation in a proper way. Otherwise your the output will still remain in a granular level. So before going into much detail, we will see some of the basic types of aggregations which are almost common across all the tools, which are count, sum, minimum, maximum, average, only, mean, median, mode, concat, min string, max string. So there are several string specific aggregations, numeric specific aggregations. So getting into details of aggregations, first we need to understand what is the granularity. So granularity of data, you must have heard a lot of time, like people saying what is the granularity of data, at what granular level your data is. So granularity is nothing but the details, the level of details that is there in your data. So we need to understand first. So as a data analyst, first we need to understand the raw data, the granularity of data. If I say that I have sales, I have a city-wide sales, which means that the data is granular to just city level. So I don't know actually who has performed, who are the sales managers who have actually helped to get those sales. So what I'm doing is I'm just grouping all the sales managers and I'm showing it on city level. So at that, in that particular data, the granularity basically is only at city level. We don't know what is the details of that, who has performed this sales. We don't know. We only know that it is a city level sales. That's it. So that is what is the level of detail at which the data is stored, is the granularity. Simple, we'll take an example. This word granular we must have heard in scenario where we say granules of salts, granules of sugar. So which means that the particles, the detail level of the information is granule. So a simple thing is that whenever I'll take a pinch of salt and I will count the granules, I'll get, say, suppose 150 granules. I'll take a pinch of sugar and I'll count a granule. It will be 100 granules. So I can say that salt is more granular than sugar, which means that salt has more information. So in our data scenario, when I say the data is more granular, which means that we have data at a very detailed level. I have more information available there. When it is less granular, which means that the data is at summarized form, I don't have much information available there. So the more granular the data is, the more details we have. But then for our KPIs, it is not necessary that we always need that data in that particular granular level. So we might need the data at some summary level. So which is why we have an option of using aggregations, and we use several functions explained here, and we bring the data into a summarized form. Okay, so this particular aggregation is achieved in multiple tools by using a clause called as group by clause, which we all know it. So this is basically this group by, what it does, it groups this granular data and it aggregates it on particular column. So when I say city-wise sale, I'm actually grouping entire detailed data and I am grouping it on sales level. So now when the data actually was there at a granular level, now I'm bringing it into a less granular level on a city level. So instead of detailed granularity, I'm bringing it to a city level granularity, which is so granularity is decreased now. So while using this group by clause, we need to specify the columns, specify the fields on which the data is to be aggregated, which is what we list down. So if you know the concept of granularity, it will be very clear for you to understand which column you have to use in the group by clause. Based on that, the data will get aggregated. Also, we need to keep in our mind that this group by clause is basically a resource heavy resource utilization clause. So it is not a lightweighted operation. It is going to take time. So to merge the entire data set into a summary level, it is a resource heavy, so it is going to take a bit of more reload time than regular, and it is also going to consume the RAM of the system. So it is a resource heavy operation. So you have to use group by very carefully, and you have to use it at minimum level. So you cannot use group by always whenever it is required. What we can do is we try to make minimum group by statements and merge multiple aggregation like count, sum, min, max in one single group by statement as possible, so that the minimum there are group by, the faster will be the reloads. So this is basically an overview of this. So just to give you an example, I have already said that here we can see at the just a second. Okay. So here at the bottom box, you can see that this is a particular data which is very, very granular. There are a lot of, there could be a lot of noise in that data, lot of unrequired. The data that is not actually required is present here at very detailed level, at a very granular level. As I've mentioned, it is not aggregated at all. One step we move upwards, we apply aggregation, and you can see the data is now less granular. You have specific details. One step again we move ahead, you have again more specific details, more summarized data. One step again we move ahead, then we have totally aggregated data. Now we don't have a detailed data. So this is what basically an aggregation is, that the more aggregations you apply, the more group bys, the more the more aggregations you do, the granularity of the data reduces. So you can see this diagram is very self-explanatory, that the more aggregations you are performing, here on the right hand side the granularity is less, that is the granularity is reducing. So the lesser the aggregations, more is the granularity. So if you are applying less group by in the sense, if you are using less aggregations, then the data would be more detailed level, but not necessarily that all the reports that you have in ClickView, they will require this granular data, this detail level data. What majorly the users are expecting is they want a summary of information. So it is very obvious that we have to apply this group by clause at various places in our application. So simple thing is that the more the aggregations, the lesser the granularity, and the lesser the aggregations, the more the granularity. And the diagram explains this concept very well. So just going on to the example, which we will, it's a very similar example. I'm just taking a particular random data set. We have a city columns, we have customer, we have loan account number, which I've called it as LAN, which is from a finance company. So, and we have a loan amount. So here we can see that in Pune, there is a customer named Ravi. He has two loans. Maybe one is a personal loan, another is an automobile loan, and the loan is for 50,000 and 40,000. Now this is a more granular data because I have data at a very detailed level. I can see each and every loan of a particular customer. You can see another customer, he has only one loan. You can see another customer, he has again two loans. Then another customer, we have only one loan. So this data is more granular, and what is the granularity? What is the granularity of the data is the maximum. The LAN column, you can see that it is at very detailed level. So this is the data is granular at LAN, that is the loan account number, as I can see. The next step I move ahead when I apply group by, when I want to apply group by on customer. Now what happens in the next step? You can see Ravi here, it was appearing 2 times. Now we can see Ravi only once. Why? Because I have grouped it based on what? I have used some aggregation function on the loan amount. So what I have done is I have summed up this loan amount. So now 5 plus 4 becomes 9, and Ravi is visible only once. So where in the previous table we were having this star, which means many multiple records for a particular customer. Now after group by, we have created a summary of it, and I have got the data on customer level. So now you can see all the customers here appear uniquely. The next step we move ahead, we apply group by on city. So we apply the group by on city, and then you can see city. Here we have two cities, Pune and Mumbai, which were appearing in data multiple times because the data was more granular there. But now we have a data on city level. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to merge it. Now I can see the data at a city level. So I can see Pune, and again I'm summing up this loan amounts for all those customers who are there in Pune. Now you can see the loan amount is 14,600. So it is a similar example. So the more aggregations I am applying, the data is becoming less granular, less detailed, and we are getting a summarized data. So this is a simple example of group by that or aggregations that I tried to explain. Okay, so far anyone has any questions on this?
Yeah, hi Rohan.
Hi.
Yeah, you earlier said we should apply the maximum means maximum functions what we need to like to perform a single group by before like we should minimize the use of group by.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah.
can we use like both means the group by is two time as you means to shown. Can we apply on a single?
Yeah. What? Can you repeat just?
Yeah. Can you go the next slide?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, so here we perform the group by two times.
Yeah.
So can we perform means a single time and get the both the data means the first group by and the second group by for the same means the set of data.
No, we cannot get that. Why? Because see what I'm saying, when you really require data at customer level, then I will apply one group by. But not
Okay.
necessarily that I will apply only one function in that group by. I can use multiple functions. So
Okay.
maybe in your next transformation stage, you might need a group by again on customer level. So you have applied group by there as well. So what I was trying to say is, instead of applying a separate group by where you are grouping the data again on customer level, we will try
Mm-hmm.
to use the same group by that we have already used to group the data on customer level, instead of creating multiple group by to group the data on customer level. But again, when
Okay.
you have to change the granularity, you have to use another group by. So now in this
Sure.
next group by, you can see I want a granularity at city level. So on city level, I cannot achieve this city level group by in the this customer level group by. So definitely I will have to create a separate group by, because previous group by was on customer level and now I want on city level. So next time, whenever you have to use any city level group by, you can try to use those aggregation functions in the same group by clause instead of creating multiple group bys.
Sure.
Not
Sure.
necessarily that every time it is possible, but we'll try to minimize this use of group by, because it is take it. So whenever we have huge amount of data, this group by operation take a lot of time. So we'll try
Okay.
to minimize that.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. So moving ahead, the point is the types of data models. So basically, this is a very generic topic, not specific to Qlik. And we have multiple data models here, data model schema, and it is very, again, you can see the picture explains everything. We have Snowflake schema, star schema, and single table. So Snowflakes, is everyone is aware, we have one fact table, one or more fact table, and then we have multiple dimension tables linked to further dimension tables. So this is what the Snowflake schema is. Star schema is, we have fact tables and dimension tables directly connected to it, and single table is either a single table or we have multiple tables but we have joined them into one single table. So this is what the single table. So based on that, we have certain things that we need to keep in mind. These are the certain features that we can understand, what are the limitations and what are the benefits of each. It is not necessarily that I'll not always say that you have to always use star schema, but there could be certain scenario in certain projects where we cannot actually merge these two dimension tables and bring into one to create a star schema. So I have to keep them separate. So the Snowflake schema, you can see the response time is less. Obviously, because we have multiple branches here, the data has to traverse from one branch to another. So we have multiple branches here. So this schema takes time to traverse the data. So that is why the response time is less. So if you make any selection in front end, data has to traverse from one branch to another branch. So the more the branches you have, the more is the response time. Similarly, in star schema, you can say it is performing well than Snowflakes, because the response time is comparatively less in the star schema. And in single table, since there are no branches, all the data is stored in one table, it is faster in the response time, I'm saying. Again, when it comes to RAM consumption, you can see that Snowflake schema and star schema are on the same level. but this single table is showing as bad, which means that why the RAM consumption is poor in this single table, because as I told you, I have 5 tables. I have joined those 5 tables into one single table. So all this join operation and concatenation operations will definitely consume some RAM. So which is why from RAM consumption point of view, the single table is not a good approach. Script runtime, as again it's the same point. Since we have applied various joins and concatenations and group bys, the script in the single table is script runtime takes a lot of time. However, in star schema, since we have not used any joins, the table automatically get linked, so it is taking less time. Flexibility model, it is, you can see the snowflake schema, it is very easier to understand. So if you want to create a snowflake schema in SQL, you actually have to join these multiple dimension tables and create one to get one single dimension, you have to join these 2 tables. So that is why the flexibility model in star schema and single table is very clear that this is a particular fact table, these are dimension tables. But in snowflakes there is this complexity. That is why the flexibility is little poor in snowflakes, but it is good in star schema and single table. Then we have a script complexity. Again, as I said, that to achieve one dimension, we have to apply multiple joins here in snowflake schema. Whereas in star schema, we don't have to perform those joins, and in single table, we have to perform those joins, but everything gets stored in one single table. So script complexity is a little poor in snowflake schema, but good in star and single table. So these are the different types of schema, and it is, I will never say that star schema is good or single table is good or snowflake schema is good. It depends upon what data you have there in a particular project, and it completely depends on that. But we will try to bring the data in the star format as much as possible, so that we will get more benefits out of it. So we will see some of the optimizations that we can do at UI level in QlikView. Or even in other tools as well, if we follow this, so it would be a kind of optimized approach itself. So what we have to do is, whenever you are creating UI, or if the UI is already created, first we'll try to understand the CPU utilization, the memory utilization, the calculation time of that object. So if you have a lot of data, definitely if you are using some aggregations in front end, it is going to take a lot of time. So we need to identify which are those objects first, and we need to target those objects, and we need to work on it. So if you have any aggregations done in front end, we'll try to move that aggregations in back end, so that the front end time, calculation time is reduced. Optimizing resource heavy object is the same as point one. Whatever objects we have that are resource heavy, we'll try to optimize. We'll bring the expressions in the, try to derive the columns in the backend while we reload. Then deleting irrelevant objects. Definitely, if you have in many of the dashboard we have seen, there are various objects and users are not actually using it. So based on the usage, we'll try to delete the irrelevant objects. Minimize the use of container objects. Containers are resource heavy objects which fits multiple objects inside them. So we'll try to minimize the use of container objects, avoiding long expressions with multiple string comparison. So as everyone knows that string is, as compared to numeric, string is resource heavy, which string takes a lot of size to store in memory. So we have to avoid these expressions in string that are actually having string comparisons. Then sorting the charts on numerical fields than on string expressions, using auto minimize options with charts. So whenever a chart is open in your application, which means that it is calculating, and it calculates to show that, to visualize that particular data. So whenever you have these charts open which are not required, actually we can minimize them and give an option user to auto open or minimize it. Then we have to use set analysis wherever possible, and we have to convert resource heavy objects into ad hoc reports. So ad hoc reports is basically we are giving option to users to select which dimensions or which measures he wants to see. The user will select those dimensions and measure, and only then the chart will get populated. So instead of populating the entire chart together, what we'll give is we'll give an user an option to select the dimensions and measures. So these are some of the optimizations at UI level. Similarly, we have various optimizations at script level. So at script level, what we can do is, as I
रोहन
yeah
रोहन पिंटू पांडे, तो
yeah hi
अगर एक डैशबोर्ड के ऊपर सपोज करिए कि 20 चार्ट है,
okay
तो आप कैसे उसमें पता करेंगे कि कौन सा चार्ट में एग्रीगेट फंक्शन ज्यादा कॉम्प्लेक्स लगा हुआ है और कौन सा चार्ट जो है
नहीं,
वो।
तो इसके लिए क्या है, हमारे पास डॉक्यूमेंट एनालाइजर करके एक एप्लीकेशन ऑलरेडी अवेलेबल है। सो वो हम लोग यूज कर सकते हैं, जिसको हम लोग ये डॉक्यूमेंट एनालाइजर एप्लीकेशन थ्रू वी कैन एक्चुअली एनालाइज अ पर्टिकुलर ClickView एप्लीकेशन. You know, if you put that application in the document analyzer and reload it, you will get all the details, which particular object is consuming, more memory, for which is taking more calculation time. Based on that, you can sort and you can target specific charts which are actually taking a lot of time. Another option is there in Click itself. When you will go into the document properties, you will see an expression overview. There you can see, object specific calculation time. But again, I'll say document analyzer is the best way to, get those details.
ओके, थैंक यू।
Yeah. So moving on to the scripts, as I said that we have to use less group bys. So we'll have to review the code and UI for the number of group by used. So we'll try to minimize the use of group by, reducing the group by wherever possible. Moving the aggregations from UI to script. As I said, if you have any sum or count, functions used in front end, we'll try to bring it in back end, create all at once. We'll try to create some flags based on that, and we can use those flags in front end directly instead of calculations at front end. So moving complex calculations from UI to script, avoid using complex composite keys, instead use auto numbers. So usually we use composite keys to achieve the uniqueness of a table. We combine multiple columns without even bothering whether we are comparing numeric columns or string columns. So the more string columns we have in this composite key, the more complex that key gets and the more size it takes. Also, accordingly, the application size also increases. So we have to make sure that we have to create as much as numeric keys as possible, and this auto number functions helps in that. So but again, that auto number function has to be used very carefully, and you can get the technical details from the Click documents how to use this auto number function. Keeping limited rolling months data, usually you can see various applications where we have 6 to 7 years of data unnecessarily, where user is actually interested into recent years, maybe, or the current year or the current month only. So we need to discuss with user and make sure that is this particular data is really required, or we can keep rolling months of data, that is rolling months or rolling years of data. So instead of keeping 5 to 6 years, I'll just keep last 2 years data. Dropping irrelevant timestamp fields. Now this timestamp fields are, you can see that if I consider one particular date field, so if I consider 5 date fields, I have unique 5 dates, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1st of June to 4th of June, 4 to 5th of June. So I have 5 unique dates. Now in these 5 unique dates, if I try to count the number of timestamp, there will be huge number of timestamp, unique timestamp. So the more the unique number of values, the more is the application size. So we will try to reduce such things. So we'll drop all those timestamp fields which are actually not required, or if we have timestamp fields and if we require timestamp field, we will try to bring it to one particular level. That is, if we require only particular date from that timestamp, we will apply a date function and pick up only date and remove the timestamp part. If we require hour or minute of timestamp, then we will bring only hour, or we will take only hours and minutes from that timestamp instead of considering the entire timestamp. Because if you consider entire timestamp, the uniqueness in that particular field is increased. You are considering a lot of unique data and it is increasing the application size. So this is around timestamp. That is what it is mentioned there, that round timestamp fields to nearest reasonable level. Following the staging approach, we have already seen it. Then we have optimization at server level. Now server level, which means that there are certain scenarios where your client might not have a good infrastructure in terms of configuration of the server, and your application might perform well if that application is not optimized. So we'll first try all this optimization approach that we have discussed so far. And apart from that, what we can do is we can split some particular, if we have application of 2 GB, we will try to split that particular application into smaller applications. Why? Because 2 GB of application, when it gets loaded into memory for first user, it will take around 4 times to 10 times of size. If application size is 1 GB, it will load into memory as a 4 GB for first user. And then for consequent, for subsequent users, whatever the application size is around 10% of that 4 GB. So you can imagine one particular user is actually interested in only one particular sheet of that application, but still he has to open that entire 1 GB of application. So we will try to split those application maybe on plant wise, or maybe on, if we have country wise application, we'll split that application into country wise. You can see in this diagram that we have a main application of 1 GB. I have splitted that application into 3 countries: Lebanon, UAE, and I have 3 countries. So now these 3 applications are 341 MB, just approximate size I'm saying. So 1 GB is now broken down into 341, 341, 341. So now instead of loading 1 GB application in memory, now only 341 MB will get loaded, that too as per the user requirement. Then we will review the server configurations and work on server sizing if required. That is, we will check the configuration of the servers that we are working on, where we are going to productionize the application or making the application live. And we are going to check if this particular size is actually good to handle our application. If it is not, then we have this server sizing activity which we can perform, and then we can decide how much RAM or CPU that the client has to increase the RAM or CPU of that particular server. Then in terms of reloads, we can analyze the possibilities of parallel reloads. The more parallel the reloads, the faster is the execution. Faster in the sense the final application will be reloaded more. So if it is reloading at 10 AM, if you use parallel execution, it might, you might reduce 1 or 2 hours. Then load balancing on QVS and QEWS. Load balancing is a concept on admin part, where we have to, if there is a load on server, automatically there is another server that take care of that load. Then server load will be very high if concurrent users using ClickView web server is high. It's the same thing that I said. So the thing is that whenever you will break this application into multiple application country wise, this is what approach we have decided to use. So there is one big application we have broken down into country wise. Now for user, it is not, so it might not be a requirement from user wants only one single application. So what we can do is, for our benefit and for user better experience, we have broken this application country wise, but for user they want it a single application. So what we can do is, we can use a concept of document chaining which is there in ClickView, where we can actually break the applications into multiple applications. You can see here that there was one big applications which I broke country wise into report 1, report 2, report 3, and report 4 applications. And then I create one application which has an index page which will represent all these broken applications into one single application. So on that index page you will see navigation links of all these broken applications. So this is for user, only this application will be visible. Rest all we will handle it through document chaining, which is a concept where we call one ClickView document from a particular another ClickView document. So from this index ClickView document, I am going to call different other ClickView documents that we have broken on country level. So when I click on this first tile, I will get this first report. So for user, it is like only one single application. He is not aware what exactly happening in backend. He don't know that he has actually navigated to different ClickView application. For him, he feels that I'm clicking on this index page and then I'm navigating to some another report. That's it. So we can use this document chaining in such scenarios. So in this session, this was the last topic that I covered, document chaining. So far, I think that you all have understood all the things, and I'm expecting, if you have any questions, you can definitely ask.
Hi Rohan, it's Upanshu.
Hi.
Rohan, I have a question that you are saying that we have to broke the applications according to the countries,
Yeah.
like in previous slide.
Yeah.
With this, we have to user have to incur a cost of doccals. Like we are using doccals, and user have to incur more cost of cals.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Correct.
In another case, in next sheet, you are saying we will use document chaining. Then user have to incur another cost or not? Like we have to. provide
Yeah, so
one
that is
doccal to user.
correct. So that is a good point that I missed to mention it. That whenever you
Yeah.
will break this application, definitely if it is there are only document cals there in that particular project, then definitely the user will require more document cals. But so that thing we have to consider in mind. So this is from point of view of user experience. I'm saying that we can break the application, but if it is limitation of definitely the limitations of cals there, then we definitely the user will require multiple cals, or maybe he'll require instead of one cal he will require two cals, because the user is only going to access one particular country's application.
Yes.
So that is the point. Yeah, correct.
So my question is that if we will use document chaining, then user have to use two docals for two indexes or not?
So we have to use two docals for two QEWs. So if that particular user is going to access two QEWs application from, so first is the index application, another is the
Yeah.
application to which he will going to navigate it.
Yeah.
So
So
or we can do is we can keep one single application instead of creating a separate index application. We can create one single application where we will have index plus one country or something like that. So this is just an example. I said country wise, but you can also have some reports which you can break it on department level, where the main dashboard part should be visible to all the users. But then when it goes to details, it will be only specific to departments. So that way. So the document cal point is a very valid point where we have to consider that thing in mind before using this document chaining.
okay. Actually, I'm not clear on that point. So can you please help me out that if I will do indexing,
Okay.
like a user wants to view report 1 and report 2.
Okay.
Single user wants to open report 1 and report 2, then user needs two docals or only one docal to open index QEW only. My question is that.
So he will require one doccal for opening index QEW and another doccal for opening report 1 QEW, because there are these two
Okay.
QEWs.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Clear. Thank you. Thank you, Ram.
Yeah. Anything else? Anyone? That's it.
Nice presentation, Rohan.
Yeah, thanks.
Very good session, Rohan.
Thanks, ma'am.
I think there are no.
Yeah.
Well presentation, Ram. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then definitely if you have any issues, you can connect with me on this presentation.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, thank you all.
Thanks, Rohan.
Yeah.
Thanks, all of you.
Thanks, Rohan.
See you in the next session.